Imagine being so angry at a grade that you decide the only solution is murder. Imagine planning it for weeks, stalking your teacher, mapping her routine, choosing the perfect isolated spot, executing the plan, and then bragging about it on Snapchat. This is the story of how two 16-year-old students committed a calculated killing in a quiet Iowa town and how social media became the evidence that destroyed them. By the end of this story, you'll be asking one chilling question: how did a failing grade turn into a life sentence? In 2021, in the small town of Fairfield, 16-year-old Chadden was like many high school students. He had a goal: he desperately wanted to study abroad in Spain. For him, this wasn't just a trip. It was an escape, a dream, a chance to reinvent himself. But there was one obstacle standing in his way: his Spanish teacher. By all accounts from other students, she was kind, respected, and deeply committed to her job. But she was also known for one thing: she graded hard, very hard. And Chadden was failing. Whether he deserved that grade or not didn't matter anymore. In his mind, the situation became personal. He didn't see it as poor performance. He saw it as sabotage. He became convinced that she was ruining his future on purpose. He argued with her. He complained to friends. He even brought his mother to school to challenge the grade. But the teacher didn't budge. And that's when something changed inside him. What started as frustration turned into obsession. He talked about her constantly. He vented. He replayed arguments in his head. He convinced himself she was targeting him. Soon, his language changed. He stopped saying, "I hate her class." He started saying, "I hate her." Then, one day, he said something much darker to a classmate named Jeremy. "Want to help me kill her?" And shockingly, Jeremy said, yet Jeremy was also 16, also in the class, also frustrated. But instead of brushing off the comment like a joke, the two boys leaned into it. They began planning. This wasn't impulsive. This wasn't heat-of-the-moment rage. This was methodical. They studied her routine, learned that every day she walked a trail at a local park. A trail with an isolated section where no one else would be around. They made a supply list. They researched strange questions online, like, what happens to grades if a teacher dies? Do students still get credit? They weren't thinking emotionally anymore. They were thinking strategically. 2 weeks passed while they prepared. They chose their weapon. A baseball bat. They chose the location. The park trail. They chose the day. They went to school like normal. Sat in class, talked to friends, acted completely ordinary. After school, they went to the park and waited. Eventually, the teacher arrived for her usual walk. She saw them, smiled, greeted them like students she recognized. She had no reason to feel unsafe. Jeremy ran ahead on the loop. Chadden stayed behind her. Jeremy put on a ski mask and walked toward her, distracting her attention. And from behind, Chadden attacked with a bat. They took turns. When it was over, they dragged her body into the woods, stole money and her van keys, and drove the van far outside town to hide it. Hours later, they returned to the scene to clean up evidence and move the body further from the trail. Then they went to Jeremy's house and drank. The next morning, they went to school, hungover, tired, but calm. Students were confused why the Spanish teacher wasn't there. Chadden bragged to friends that he had caught a body. Jeremy did something even more unbelievable. He started sending Snapchats, photos holding bleach, a shovel, tools, jokes, a message that said, "Time to hide a body." Friends thought it was a sick joke, until police announced the teacher was missing. Then panic set in, and multiple students went straight to the police. Meanwhile, the teacher's husband had returned home and reported her missing. Search teams found her body in the park. Police now had two pieces of information at the same time: a murdered teacher and Snapchat confessions. It didn't take long. Jeremy was arrested, Chadden was arrested. Both charged as adults. The Snapchat messages were devastating evidence. The searches, the planning, the bragging, the photos. They had documented their own crime in real time. What they thought was funny, what they thought was clever, was a digital trail leading straight to life in prison. Both eventually took plea deals. Both received life sentences. All of this because of a grade, because a teenager couldn't handle failure, because anger turned into entitlement, because they believed removing a person would remove their problem. This case is studied not just as a murder, but as a psychological collapse fueled by obsession, ego, and immaturity. A respected teacher went for a walk. 2 students followed her, and Snapchat told the world what they did. A failing grade turned into 2 life sentences, and a small Iowa town will never forget how something so ordinary became something so horrific. This is Crime Line.